ọmọ mi ayọ̀ mi mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run tó fi fún mi. You are a blessing, not a lesson. I can't wait for you to call me daddy. Inú mi dùn, ayọ̀ mi kún. I feel so lucky that I got you. Inú mi dùn, ayọ̀ mi kún. I feel so blessed that I
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our program on parenting. My name is Riziki Ahmed, and as usual we'll be talking on tips on parenting. And I always start by reminding us that parenting is a very noble cause, something we all should work very hard at, and remind ourselves that our children could be our sadaqatul jariyah. So today we are going to work on some tips. I've been getting questions here and there on parenting. So I've prepared 10 tips that we can use, and we can actually take and try and apply them in our parenting skills as we work around with our children. So sit back and let us look at the tips. Pick whatever you feel you can work with, maybe one tip or even all the 10 tips. So we'll start by addressing what is parenting again. Parenting is quite a challenging thing, and it can also be very rewarding. It all depends on how we look at it. So when it comes to challenges, we take up the challenges. And when we are reaping the rewards, we thank Allah that we have actually worked very hard to reap these rewards from our children. And a parent should treat parenting the way they treat their jobs, with the seriousness they treat their jobs. At times we feel like it is just something that just happens, we're just there, we are present, but we need to always have a plan in what we are doing with our parenting. So it's very important to treat it like any other job, have a plan, always know what we are doing, and what we are doing is right. If it's not working, we change and try and apply something else, just the way we apply in our businesses. So as we are saying, is that parenting is something that can help foster some very positive things in our children. When we get very good parenting, we get children who develop empathy. And when you talk of empathy, these are children who are able to feel another person's pain. Some children who can understand when somebody else has pain. And this is a very important Islamic virtue. As Muslims, we are told that if one finger is paining, all the fingers or the whole body feels pain. So as Muslims, we should train our children to have empathy for the ummah, empathy for their siblings, empathy for their family and any other person. So when we have good parenting skills, we are able to impart empathy on our children. Then our children also become self-reliant. When we have good parenting skills, we are teaching our children responsibility. We want them to become self-reliant, people who can rely on themselves and don't need to beg or don't need other people for them to achieve. They can work with other people and be very self-reliant, people who can believe in themselves. So what we are working at is creating a being who is able to believe that he is capable of achieving whatever he sets out to do with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Self-control. We want children who are able to have self-control. As good parents, when we have very good parenting skills, our children also develop self-control. They know that life without control will just get out of hand. And it's so important that they're aware that they can have control over everything that they do, and they can control themselves on things they're not supposed to do, and they can control the things they're able to do. So we are actually teaching them how to have self-control. We live in a world where everything is instant. We have our instant coffee, we have our instant messaging, we have everything on our fingertips. Everything is very fast. And this is something that can actually make children at times feel like they're not in control. Everything is happening just so fast. So with very good parenting, we're able now to help them to regulate and be able to have control of themselves. Kindness. Good parenting actually makes children be more kind. And it will all depend on how we are parenting. Are we showing kindness ourselves? So with good parenting, we're actually also putting kindness. Kindness is also a very important Islamic virtue. We know that we have to be kind. And we as Muslims do not have to go preaching what Islam is. our character, our behavior is what should show people what Islam is. So with the bad image that Islam has, the way we are taken around in the media, if we could just put in this virtue of kindness in our children, we'd actually have Muslims who are kind, and people would pick up on that, and that would be what Islam is. Then cooperation. When you do good parenting, our children are more cooperative. They're able to cooperate with you. They're able to cooperate with other people. When they go to the masjid, they are able to work with the other people there and cooperate in any project that is happening. But if they didn't get any good parenting, they might not have this will to cooperate. They might not be willing to cooperate. They might actually be the people bringing down the little projects that people are trying to bring up. So this is something that we need to look at. And then cheerfulness. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has always said, smile. Smiling is a charity. So do our children smile when they leave the house? Do they smile at other people? Do they know it is a charity? So this is the kind of things we want to have in our children when we are having very good parenting happening. So we are having this child whom I have said has empathy, is self-reliant, has self-control, has kindness, is cooperative, and has cheerfulness. So good parenting helps protect our children, and we are protecting them from people who are easily swayed, people who will be easily swayed into crime, into substance use, into behaviors that we don't want. So good parenting is actually like cushioning your child from being swayed easily into any behavior that you don't like. So the most important thing is that you have to be present, you have to be a parent, and you have to use the skills that we share with you, and also gain other more skills. So today we are going to look at those tips that I talked about. And the first one is what you do matters. So the first tip is what you do matters. So you yourself as the parent, what are the things that you're doing? Are you doing your 5 salat as you're supposed to do? On time? Do you do your adhkar? Do you read your Quran? Do you talk to people nicely? Do you know how to argue? Do you have the etiquette of quarreling? How do you carry yourself? That is something very important, and our children are always speaking on that. So the way we behave is the way our children will behave. And I will say this, when I was a teacher, anytime I had a child who I would find the behavior to be a bit unbecoming, the most unfortunate thing is that anytime I met the parent, it actually explained this child's behavior. Like you meet the parent, you know the child. So at times when you look at your child and you feel your child is not behaving appropriately, maybe you need to put the lens on yourself. Ask yourself, am I actually being a good role model? Because you're their first role model. You're the first person they're learning things from. So they're observing you the whole time. Do you gossip when they are there? If you gossip when they are there, they're also going to become gossips. When you know, whatever you do, that is what they are going to be. And you cannot have, I remember having a parent who was insisting, please ask my daughter to wear hijab, and yet she was not wearing hijab. So you wonder, how are you going to force this young person to wear a hijab when the parent is not wearing the hijab? So it's very important that we as parents remember the first parenting skill, the first parenting tip is the children are looking at us. And they are going to be who we are. They pick from us, and they are very good at picking. They are like a sponge. And I think I've said that severally. Also, tip number 2, you cannot be too loving. Our children need to be loved. And the best example was Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I think he showed us how to love children. He was always touching their heads, always being there with them, talking to them, listening to them. And he showed us that we can love our children. We can never give too much love to our children. Now, most parents think when I love this child too much, the child will get spoiled. Or you hear people saying, do not overlove the child. You're overloving the child, and that's why the child is getting spoiled. Children do not get spoiled because we are overloving them. Children get spoiled when we love them the wrong way. And most of the times we are loving them by giving them gadgets. We are loving them by giving them stuff, like we are giving and we're never saying no, thinking that is loving. Loving is different from giving. So I'm not talking of letting the child watch cartoon the whole day and saying, because I love him so much, I let him watch cartoon. I love him so much, I bought him this phone. I love him so much, I gave him this, I gave him that. That is not loving. Loving is actually showing your child that you love them, saying it in words that you love them, touching them and giving them your time, your attention, and being there in their lives. In whatever little things they are doing, you are also present in that. That is loving. So we must differentiate between this spoiling of children by giving things. And most of the time we give these things because we are guilty of not being present. So because I'm not there in my child's life, I will look for what can I give my child so that I can pay for my guilt. So let us love our children and let us give them unconditional love. And when I speak of unconditional love, it's a love where you don't tell them, I'll only love you when you become number one. I will only love you when you are nice to me. I will only love you. No, we are first giving them love without conditions and then teaching them behaviors that come with that love. And loving is not giving. Loving is not just giving gadgets. And I'm not saying don't give your children. We reward children. We buy them presents. Part of loving is buying presents. But we don't give them because we are feeling guilty because we didn't give them our time. We are buying these presents. We are rewarding them for maybe something that we like that they did. We are giving them presents maybe to make us more in touch with them. And then be involved in your child's life. That is tip number 3. Most of the time, you'll find that we as parents are not totally involved in our children's lives. We are there sometimes and sometimes we are not there. So as we go for the short break, we are going to be thinking of the 2 tips I've talked about, the loving and the being there, like our behavior being part of the tips. And then we're going to look at what do we mean by being involved in our child's life. So as we go for the short break, please think on that. When you come back, we'll pick up from there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the program. And today we are actually sharing some parenting tips. We've done 2 already. We are on the 3rd tip. And the 3rd tip, we were talking about being involved in our children's life. And part of being involved is actually setting your priorities right, knowing what you need to do to be with your children. Like, what do I have to do away with so that I can spend more time with my child? At times we spend a lot of time with our friends. At times we're spending too much time on our phones. At times we're spending too much time maybe watching television and actually not being with our children. So being involved with them is actually doing things with them, like not just sitting to watch maybe a program. If you're sitting to watch a program, maybe it's a program where we will have a discussion on it after that. So maybe it could be an Islamic program, maybe it could be on Sahabas, and you could actually sit and have a discussion with the children after that, that you're actually involved in what they're doing and not just sitting and watching without any discussion. That is not being involved. So it means you sacrificing your time, taking time off from other stuff just to be with your children, to do stuff. If it's cooking, you cook with them as you're talking. If it's doing anything else, you're doing it with them, or you're even taking time to go with them somewhere and spend the whole day with them, where you're actually talking to them, you're playing with them, or you're doing stuff with them. And children love when their parents are present in their lives because they start feeling a very strong connection with them. And it is very good for their own physical and their mental well-being. And when I talk about being involved, it does not mean doing their homework. Some parents end up doing their children's homework thinking they're being involved with their children. Doing homework, you just work with them in their homework. Like when they're doing their homework, you're sitting with them, you are helping them to do the homework. You're not actually doing the homework for them. I know we get so tempted at times when they're doing homework, you want to do it for them. and that is not being involved in their life. Just sit with the child and help them do the homework. Whatever they need help in, you're there, you're sitting with them. And at times, it's very tempting to get the house girl to sit with the children, or even get a teacher who comes in to do the homework with the children. I usually ask, why can't you just take time out of your busy schedule or whatever other activities you're doing, just sit down and do this homework with your child. You're actually being involved with your child. You can create activities that you can do with your child. Maybe if it's a young boy, you can make sure you're going with this young boy to the mosque. He sees that you're actually involved, you're going with him to the mosque, you're sitting down with him maybe after the salah, doing the adhkar with him, and maybe also listening maybe to what is being said with him, and when you're coming back, discussing what the imam said with him. If it's the girls at home, they can pray with their mom, or when you're doing your sunnah, you can do it at home so that you pray with them and sit down and actually have a chat on something on the salah, on the ibadah, so that you're actually very, very actively involved in their lives. So we can try as much as possible to pray our sunnah prayers in the house, so that we can have our children actually pray along with us, so they also feel a part of us, and we're actually very involved with them. If you're doing the homework, you let the teacher know, because the teacher will think the child has become very clever all of a sudden. And most teachers will actually tell you, please don't do their homework. So let's not do their homework by thinking that is getting involved. Let them do their homework, but sit with them as they are doing this homework. Look at what they did in school. Be very involved. Find out, what did they do in school? What did they learn? Ask them to teach you what they learned. Tell them to tell you anything new that they have discovered, anything that they are doing that is very exciting, and be a part of it. And then adapt your parenting to fit your child. That is our tip number 4. Adapt your parenting to fit your child. Let us remember, children are not the same. They could have different temperaments, and the way another family will maybe be parenting their children might not actually come and suit your child. So you need to learn your child first, so that you can adapt your parenting skills to suit your child. You have to pace your child according to their own milestones. Where are they at? You cannot just rush your child through everything because the other parent's child is being rushed through that. No. Look at your child. Know how to pace your child. Where is my child at? What does my child need at this particular time? So you're parenting according to your child's ability. Consider the age of your child. We know that a 2-year-old is a child who is actually looking for some form of autonomy. They want to tell you, let me dress myself. They want to choose what they want to wear. They are different from a teenager. So you as a parent should know, what does my child need at any given stage? And I think we've talked a lot on all those. So it's now you to come and adapt everything to suit your child's age, your child's temperament, and the behavior your child is exhibiting at any given time. So there are times when you will need to be different because of the behavior that is being exhibited at any time. And remember, children are very curious, they're very inquisitive. Others might be more quiet, might not be as curious. So as a parent, you need to learn your child. So the more you're spending time with your child, the more you will learn your child, and the more you learn what does your child need at any given time. So you will actually be able to adapt your parenting to suit your child. So remember, each child is different. Then let us go to tip number 5. Establish and set rules. Now, this is where we have a lot of problems. You find children who have no rules, children who believe rules belong to school. They actually will tell you the rules are for school. And on a lighter note, I remember a child who used to tell the parent this dua, like they would learn a certain dua, let's say for going to the toilet. And when they went home, they would not use it. So they would tell the parent, this dua is for school. Meaning, children are able to differentiate like school and home. And they know schools have rules And at times, our homes don't have rules. So each home should aspire to have its own rules. We only manage children's behavior once we have some set rules. And these rules, remember, we make them with them. And children will have a hard time learning how to manage themselves if they were never set any rules. So at any given time, let us have certain rules. We can start with very simple rules like after meal times, can you carry your plates and take them to the kitchen? We don't allow plates to be left on the table after a meal. So everybody has to pick their plate and take them to the kitchen and maybe to the kitchen sink. So they already have a rule that when we finish eating, we don't leave our plates on the table. Or when we finish eating, we pick up after ourselves. Or when we come from school, we don't dump our shoes and our school bags at the door and come in and sit. No, we know, like they already know when you come in where to put their shoes. They already know where to put their bag. There are certain rules that have been set up for them. And in this way, we're actually teaching them responsibility. And now we are able to manage their behavior because we already have a set of rules. And it's important to actually explain why we are having these rules. If we are having a rule of not dumping shoes at the entrance, the children will know that there's a reason why we don't all just come and dump the shoes. And who is it who is supposed to come and pick after them? Let us teach our children not to always wait for somebody to pick after them, to learn to pick their own stuff, to learn to carry their own stuff. And it is very important that once you teach your children rules, they are able to apply them. Like they know these are our rules and they are able to apply them. Yours is just to keep checking. Are we applying our rules? They know these are our rules, so they are actually applying them. And remember, we cannot micromanage the child the whole time. So once we have set rules, we have taught the children the rules, we want them to apply these rules even when we are not present. Because what we are creating is a human being who lives within certain rules. And we as Muslims, we know that we all live within certain rules. We've not been let free. We've been asked to follow certain rules. And we are actually following them as Muslims. We know that we aspire to follow those rules. So our children from a very tender age, we start teaching them there are certain rules and we start teaching them we don't have to micromanage. Nobody micromanages us as grown-ups. We know the rules that have been set. We aspire to follow those rules. So we teach our children rules and teach them how to apply them even when we are not present. So our tip number 6, foster your child's independence. I find most parents really struggling with letting a child be independent. Like I started saying, the child of 2 years, they want some form of independence. They want to choose what to wear. They want to choose what to eat. They want to choose what to do at certain times. So they're just struggling to get some form of independence. And every human being loves to have independence. And we all know that we are teaching our children, we are bringing up our children to one day become independent human beings who can lead their own lives. And we always pray that they lead very good lives. So what do we want them? We want them to have some form of independence. Unfortunately, we as parents, we find it very hard to let go. So at home, we need to start encouraging some sense of independence, help them to develop a sense of self-direction. They are able to do stuff with their own direction so that they're able to be successful in life. And they're able to know what are their needs and how to apply this independence towards their needs. It's very normal for children to push for this independence, autonomy. It's part of their growing up. And many parents, unfortunately, at times when children are trying to be independent, think it is being rebellious. So most of the time we have discord with children, between children and parents, because children are trying to gain some independence and parents are reading it as a form of rebellion. Like they now want to act different. They're getting out of control. So because it's part of human nature to want autonomy, it's for us to help them develop this autonomy, to listen to their voice when they are maybe saying something that is not what we have been saying. Maybe they are trying to bring in something new. Maybe they are actually asking, why do we have to do it this way? And it is now up to us to explain and also give them some leverage to be able now to have a bit of autonomy in their home. So I think we've only reached up to tip number 6, and we are coming to the end of our program. So as we work on those tips, I would like to ask parents that when we are sitting back, when we are reflecting, let us see how we can apply them within our homes. And every home is different, but alhamdulillah, we know that all of us aspire to go to Jannah. All of us aspire to have children who can do dua for us when we are not there. So may Allah guide our children, may Allah guide all of us. So until we see you next time, this is Riziki from Hidayah.
Ayọ̀ mi, mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run tó fi fún mi, yeah. You are a blessing, not a lesson. I can't wait for you to call me daddy. Inú mi dùn, ayọ̀ mi kún. I feel so lucky that I got you.